Out of 7,013 Hueys sent to Vietnam, 3,305 never came back, each one the lifeline for soldiers on the ground, and each one a new entry in a mounting ledger of risk. Before a single missile changed everything, the Huey was both a revolution and a death sentence. The Huey helicopter became the backbone of American operations in Vietnam. Its rotors cut through jungle air, day and night, carrying troops into battle, evacuating the wounded, and delivering supplies where trucks and tanks could not reach. Over 90,000 soldiers owed their survival to a medevac ride, getting wounded troops to hospital in less than 60 minutes, a leap forward from the days it took in Korea or World War II. Each mission demanded flying low and slow, sometimes hovering just above the treetops or rice paddies, exposed to rifles, machine guns, and the ever-present threat of .50 caliber fire. The open doors of the Huey gave medics and door gunners a clear view, but also left pilots and crew with little more than a thin sheet of metal between them and enemy bullets. Early models carried no armor at all. Even after upgrades, most vital systems, engine, transmission, and fuel tanks remained vulnerable to a single well-placed round. The numbers tell a story of both achievement and cost. 3,305 Hueys were destroyed out of 7,013 sent to Vietnam, nearly half wiped from the skies. For every life saved, another risk was taken. The same design that made the Huey indispensable, its speed, its agility, its ability to land almost anywhere, also made it a target. The sound of its blades promised hope, but for too many crews, it was the last sound they ever heard. May 2nd, 1972. A rescue mission near Quang Tri pushed a UH-1H Huey and its crew into the heart of danger. Tail number 701583, flown by Warrant Officer William Jesse and co-pilot John Petrilla, lifted off under heavy fire. Specialist Charles Vernon Morgan and Specialist Dale Kayette Porterfield manned the doors. Captain Joseph Mike Berkson, an ARVN advisor, rode as a passenger. Their task was to extract a downed forward air controller before enemy forces closed in. The sky was thick with threat, but the crew pressed on. There was no warning, no alarm, no flashing light, no time to react. A Soviet-made SA-7 missile struck the Huey's tail, locking onto the heat of its turbine exhaust. In an instant, the helicopter spun out of control and crashed. All 5 men aboard were killed. No one survived. This was the first confirmed loss of a UH-1H to a man-portable missile in Vietnam. The crew had no way to detect the launch, no countermeasures to deploy, and no armor to shield them from the warhead's blast. Their sacrifice exposed a new kind of threat, one that made every low-flying rescue, every medevac, and every supply run a gamble against an invisible enemy. The loss of 701583 was not just a tragedy for its crew. It was a warning to every pilot and gunner still flying. The rules of the air war had changed overnight. The Soviet SA-7 Strela arrived in Vietnam as a simple shoulder-fired tube, but its real power lay hidden in the seeker head. This missile did not chase radar or radio signals. It hunted heat. The Strela uncooled lead sulfide sensor was tuned to the mid-infrared band, perfectly matched to the blazing turbine exhaust of the Huey. In combat, a launch operator needed only to line up behind the helicopter, anywhere within a 30-degree cone off the tail. Once fired, the missile locked onto the hottest spot it could see. For the first-generation Strela II, that meant it could only chase from the rear, but even this limited geometry turned every low-flying UH-1 Huey into a target. The economics were as ruthless as the technology. Each SA-7 cost the North Vietnamese about $15,000. A UH-1 Huey Built in Texas, shipped across the Pacific, and maintained by teams of mechanics, cost the U.S. government $250,000 per airframe. The math was brutal. One cheap missile could destroy a $250,000 aircraft and its entire crew in seconds. The next generation Strela 2M appeared in late 1972 with an improved seeker that could engage from the front as well as the rear, shrinking the margin for a pilot to survive even further. The balance of power was shifting. The exposed exhaust of the Huey, so vital for speed and lift, became a glowing beacon for the hungry eye of the Strela. There was no warning, no defense, and no time to adapt. The battlefield had become a contest of heat signatures and cost ratios, where technology and economics collided with deadly force. In May and June 1972, the air war over Quang Tri province turned into a killing ground for helicopters. 16 aircraft were downed in just a few weeks, an attrition rate that stunned even seasoned crews. The first fixed-wing loss to SA-7, an O-2A observation plane, sent a clear message. Anything flying low and slow was now prey. Within days, the same missile system brought down multiple UH-1 Hueys and for the first time took out the heavily armed AH-1 Cobra gunships. These Cobras, designed to escort troop carriers and suppress enemy fire, fell victim to a weapon that did not care about armor or firepower, only heat and a clear shot at the tailpipe. Pilots described the atmosphere as electric with fear. Every mission meant scanning the tree line for the glint of a launch tube, knowing the first sign of attack would be the missile itself, streaking in from behind. Some units grounded their helicopters for hours, scrambling to rewrite tactics that had worked for years. Flight logs from the 1st Cavalry and the 101st Airborne show entire formations forced to climb hundreds of feet higher, abandoning the nap of the earth flying that had once been their shield. Medevac crews, already stretched thin, now faced the impossible. They had to reach the wounded without hovering low enough to invite a missile. The sudden spike in losses at Quang Tri forced a reckoning. SA-7 changed the rules overnight, and the old ways of flying, low, slow, and exposed, were now a death sentence. For the first time, the helicopter's greatest strengths had become its downfall. Pilots scrambled to rewrite the playbook in real time. Orders came down to climb higher, sometimes flying at 1,000 feet or more, well above the tree line that once hid them from gunfire. Airspeed increased on every approach and exit, trading the precision of low-level insertions for a few extra seconds of survival. The old habit of hovering over a landing zone vanished almost overnight. Instead, crews executed steep dives and rapid climbs, touching down just long enough to drop off or pick up troops before pulling away at full throttle. Some helicopters received the ANALQ-144 infrared jammer. Its spinning emitter was meant to confuse heat-seeking missiles, while others were fitted with flare dispensers to throw off a lock. But the rollout lagged behind the threat. Many Hueys flew without any protection at all. Tactics changed, but the technology to match the new danger was always a step behind. In the spring of 1975, the skies over South Vietnam emptied almost overnight. SA-7 missiles now dotted every major approach, waiting for the heat signature of a Huey or a Cobra. South Vietnamese helicopter crews faced a new reality. Every flight was a coin toss, and the odds grew worse by the day. Losses mounted so quickly that entire squadrons found themselves grounded, not by enemy fire, but by fear and exhaustion. Reports from the final weeks describe pilots refusing to fly, airfields littered with damaged airframes, and commanders unable to muster enough willing crews for even the most urgent missions. The North Vietnamese advance, backed by a steady supply of Soviet missiles, swept aside what remained of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam air support. By the time Saigon fell, more than 800 South Vietnamese aircraft and helicopters had been destroyed or captured. The air arm was finished, not just by enemy action, but by a collapse of morale and the simple certainty that survival was no longer possible. Today, every combat helicopter carries the scars and countermeasures born from the Hueys' fate in Vietnam. As shoulder-fired missiles spread worldwide, the calculus of vulnerability remains unsolved. Survivability now shapes every mission and every design. The price of oversight is still measured in lives, not just lost machines. Share your thoughts below.